Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm excited to be here with Krishna and Paul. Some folks you have probably met before if you've attended one of our webinars. This is focused today on Komprise Smart Data Workflow Manager. So let's just say hi to everybody. This is a live webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I will say you can use the panels on the right side if you're watching us live to ask us questions. We like to make these as interactive as possible. So yeah, let's dive into today's presentation and discussion. So not surprisingly, in 2024, yes, we will be talking about artificial intelligence. And a reason for Komprise to talk a lot about this topic is that it's really, AI needs unstructured data. And that's going to be a key topic today as we introduce some new functionality that we've introduced and talk about a number of new use cases. So we'll start off with Krishna, talking about this bridge between AI and unstructured data. We'll introduce what's new with the Smart Data Workflow Manager. And we'd like to spend as much time as possible in demonstrations and really show you what's new. A lot of our customers attend our webinars regularly to learn from our product management team what we're doing and where we're going. So we'll spend time on that as well as use cases. So Krishna, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about AI and unstructured data. And while we do that, I'm going to launch our first polling question, which is, where are you on your unstructured data, or excuse me, on your AI journey? Over to you, Krishna.
Yeah, perfect. I'm sure there's not a single news outlet you can open these days without hearing something about AI. And probably a lot of you are having conversations internally about how to use AI within your own organization. And it is fascinating, how much AI has advanced in the past year in particular, especially with generative AI. If you want to click through, Darren, generative AI is extremely powerful, but that generative AI needs context. We all know that garbage in, garbage out is true even with AI, right? So you want to give the right data to AI, and so that it gives you the best results. It is tricky when you're trying to give corporate data to an AI process because there's extra security that you have to think about, especially if you're sharing corporate data with a public AI solution. If you're using a cloud-based AI solution, which is what I presume most of us will be using because it's too hard to build your own machine learning model and to train your own model. So most of us are going to be using public AI services like Copilot or AWS services or OpenAI or one of these things. So if you're using a public AI service, you need to give it context, and that context comes from corporate data. And 90% plus of that corporate data is unstructured. We know that. So when you're thinking about feeding unstructured data to AI, we know unstructured data is billions of files of all kinds scattered across many silos. So, how do you find the right unstructured data? How do you mobilize it so that you can feed it to AI? How can you responsibly audit what is happening so security is not breached, so you have governance? How do you take the output of AI and tag data? All of these things require systematic execution. And that's where we feel Komprise can really help. And that's what we're doing with the Smart Data Workflow Manager. And really, when you're looking at AI, I think there are two predominant use cases. The first one is, how can you make the AI better by giving it corporate data? So you're fine tuning AI. For most of us, it's probably customizing the AI or customizing the retrieval augmentation or the inferencing by improving AI. And the other half is, how can you use AI to actually tag your data, to crack open contents, to look at data and use AI to classify it so a human doesn't have to do all that work. And we're going to show a lot of exciting stuff around that second use case in particular in today's demo. Darren, you're muted.
I'm going to run another polling question in a minute about the challenges of AI. most of the responses to the initial poll were, hey, not surprising, we're just learning about it. This is all still new. It's moving so fast. The pace of innovation is like nothing we've seen before. So yeah, a lot of people are on today's call wanting to learn. So let's talk about the challenges. And while you do that, I'll launch that second poll, which is to ask, what are your challenges when it comes to AI?
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys answering these polling questions because it also gives us an idea of where you're at and what's important to you. So thank you for doing that. But as you're starting to dabble with AI, if you do want to feed your corporate data to AI, and if you really want your users to start doing that, here's what you'd have to do. You'd have to teach each user to find the right data to feed AI. And in some cases, that may be easy because the data is in one directory. But in most cases, they're going to have to hunt around to find that data. Then they have to learn the API of each AI service. They have to learn the security model. They have to learn how to copy data into that AI or how to augment a retrieval prompt. They have to learn how to govern it, how to keep an audit log so that you know what data was fed to an external entity. And then you also have to think about the cost because AI, you pay by the drink. Every time you use it, you're paying. So if you have a lot of users using AI over and over again on the same data or using AI on too much data, you could be paying too much. And we'll show you a cost model that gives you an idea of how costs add up. Just like we show cost analysis for your data infrastructure and how we can optimize it, we're also starting to look at costs of AI compute and how you can start to optimize it. And we'll show you an example of that.
So Krishna, when you look at these options, what are your biggest challenges when it comes to corporate data and AI? Options are data governance, costs, auditing the use of AI, enabling more employees to use AI responsibly, preventing data leakage. Is there one in particular that you think is the most challenging right now with the customers and organizations you're talking to?
I think a lot of people are very concerned about data governance, and rightly so, because data governance is kind of overarching and the risk is high. Because if you leak data unintentionally, it could, you might be giving valuable corporate data or you might be liable. So, data governance is a very big issue. But I think over time, AI cost is going to become a huge issue.
Interesting. Yeah, governance is number one in the results here today. So that's interesting. So let's transition now into, we've talked about just the world that we're in and some of the challenges that organizations are facing. Let's introduce the Komprise Smart Data Workflow Manager and what we're doing here. And really the emphasis, and you'll see in the demonstration, is on point and click simplicity. Our goal is to try to take a really hard problem and simplify it and try to give you the tools to manage and automate the analysis and the mobility and the management of unstructured data to power your AI initiatives. And by the way, there are other use cases that we'll talk about today beyond AI, but clearly, AI is a big one. So before we go into the demo, Krishna, do you want to kind of summarize what you're excited about with the Smart Data Workflow Manager?
Yeah, as you're starting to try out AI, I think one thing you might find, which is what we found actually when we started looking at different AI applications, and there's a lot of powerful AI data services, especially in the cloud. But every service, when you go to try to use it, you have to learn the API of that service. You've got to learn how to get data into it. You've got to learn how to manage all of that. And it can be non-trivial. It requires effort. And what we did with this Smart Data Workflow Manager is we want to make it really simple, just like we've done in the rest of our product. It's just point and click. You can just point at things. You can select a few options and Komprise does the rest for you. And hopefully you'll see that in the demo. But we really believe we can bring point and click simplicity to the intersection of AI and data. And we think it has a tremendous potential to change the world, by doing this.
Fantastic. So Paul, let's bring you in. I know there's this is a very popular topic and a very popular webinar. So I do want to remind people that the chat is open. You can ask us some questions, and I've seen a few already come in, some of which you'll answer, I think, as you get into talking through what we're going to show. So why don't you set it up, and then we'll flip into live product. So welcome, Paul.
Sure. Thanks, Darren. As Krishna mentioned, one of the hardest parts about using AI is first finding what data you need to send to it, working with your unstructured data. And that's one of the big pieces of the Smart Data Workflow Manager. It helps you quickly and easily curate what information you want to send to your AI engines, wherever they may be. Now, for those of you who are not totally familiar with the Komprise interface, I'll be showing you that in a minute, but there is a feature in Komprise we call Deep Analytics. And while Komprise is analyzing all the data to give you aggregate information, we also look at all the metadata and store the metadata in what we call a global file index. Across your entire data estate, then, we can find and help you find data that matches certain criteria. You can quickly set up searches to find data from particular areas, either file servers, shares, different sites, even down to specific directories where data may be lurking. Because as Krishna said, you may be paying for these services based on the amount of data you feed it. If you can curate a finer tuned set of input data, that can help you control your costs. So Komprise helps you start by finding the right data, searching for it, curating it. And then, of course, you want to feed that data into your AI engine. Now, Komprise helps you do that. Again, as Kristen mentioned, it can be very laborious if you did this yourself, finding the APIs, writing scripts, setting up cron jobs, monitoring the results, handling errors. Now Komprise does that all for you. And with just a few clicks that I'll show you in our user interface, we can help you send that input data up to the right engine. That engine will find what you're looking for. Then Komprise will tag the results in our global file index, which means you've run your input data set once through that AI service. You've paid for all those drinks. Now we tag all that data in our global file index. From then on, you can continue to mine our global file index for free without using your AI service and continue to find the results that your AI engine found. And then, of course, Komprise helps you automate that. So on a periodic basis, if you've got new data dumping into locations on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis, you can have the workflow run repeatedly to find that data, send it through, enrich it, and do it again.
All right. Well, let's go see it.
So I will now share my screen.
We can see it.
Looks like that's showing up. So again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Komprise interface, this is what we call the Komprise Director. It's the user interface console where admins log into Komprise. They point Komprise to all of their unstructured data storage. They do that on the Data Stores tab. Once Komprise has analyzed the data, we give you aggregate information about how much data you've got across different, we call them age ranges. So you may have data that's very hot data. It's been accessed within 1 month, and we show you how much there is. And across different age ranges, as the data gets cooler and cooler, you can see very quickly how much data you have and how cold it is. Because Komprise helps you save costs by allowing you to configure management policies to archive or tier that data to secondary storage, which is cheap. So Komprise admins use this interface to configure and monitor their unstructured data management policies. But we now have a new tab here called Workflows, and this is the Smart Data Workflow Manager. You can see I've already got some workflows set up. For any particular workflow, you can see its status by hovering over the progress bar. You can always get details about any particular job, but I'll come back to this. I want to show you first how to set up a workflow. It's very simple. Now imagine the use case is, I've got a lot of input data images. Research has been scanning slides of mouse brains and rat brains, mouse livers, rat livers. And we've trained a couple custom models in order to help AI tell us if particular images that we send in are likely to have potential tumors. And there's lots of different tumors that we've trained the model on. So we can now send tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of images using this automated Smart Data Workflow Manager. The AI engine will come back and say, yes, these files had this tumor, those files had that tumor. We'll then tag those results in our global file index. And then using the deep analytics feature within Komprise, we can easily find the results at any time across different users at any time. So to add a workflow, it's very simple. You click the plus button. There's just a few steps in this wizard. First, of course, we want you to tell us what input data set you want us to scan, to send to your AI engine. Now, it can be very easy and simple as I just want to send this entire filer. I can get even more granular. I can say I want to send this entire share. I can get even more granular. Again, trying to control costs. If I know that, for example, inside research, there's some research archive information, and this has all the images that we're interested in, I could use this as an input data set. Alternatively, for those of you familiar with deep analytics, you can use deep analytics to set up queries to find specific sets of data, save those queries, and potentially use that as an input data set as well. So we give you a lot of flexibility here. But let's say I'm going to start with this research archive directory. Then I have choices in different scanners. We've been talking a lot about AI scanners. For this demo, I've got 2 scanners set up. One is a cloud-based AI image and video recognition system provided by Amazon AWS. It's called Rekognition. We also happen to have a PII scanner because we've gotten a lot of feedback from our customers. Finding PII in data sets is also of high importance and value. But today I'll just stick with a cloud service to show you how easy this is. I pick the content scanner, I get some information. There's a link directly to the Rekognition page if I want to find out more information. I do need to provide some information about my particular instance of Rekognition. So I've got my Amazon credentials, I've got them stored somewhere, and I just copy and paste them. And then I may have a custom model. In this case, let's look at, suppose I want to find now rat liver images. So I'm going to use a custom labels model. That's what Rekognition calls a custom trained model. And the model that I've already set up and trained in AWS is a rat liver model. Now, AWS has these very long identifiers, but of course, once you build your model, you have the identifier, you just copy and paste it in. So now Komprise knows what data set you want us to send to this scanner. The key thing in the workflow is that when the scanner, Amazon Rekognition, finds images that it thinks have potential rat tumors or rat liver tumors, it'll send back labels that we've already defined in the model. Komprise will take those labels, pair them with a key. In this case, we'll use the rat liver. All tags in Komprise are key value pairs. All the results of this particular scan will have the key rat liver. I'm going to set it to 85% confidence. That's what the 85 means. That way I'm kind of controlling. I want fewer false negatives and I want more certain results. Rekognition, of course, can give you some confidence on what it thinks it found based on the model it was trained on. So all the keys or the tags that we'll use will have the key rat liver 85. All the values for this tag key will be the values of the different rat liver tumors that have come back. That's really the heavy lifting of the workflow. After that, I decide, do I run it once? Do I want to run it repeatedly? I'll pick repeatedly because I know that the microscopes are sending new data automatically every night. So I'll send this, have it run every day. And again, to control my costs, I only want the new data that's been dumped overnight to be run through this workflow. Sometimes I may want all the data to be run again if I'm changing parameters, but in this case, I have fine-grained control over my costs. We do provide a default name, but you may want to provide something a little more descriptive, and you can add some description text as well to remind yourselves of what this workflow is doing. That's it. We let you review your settings and configuration. If you need to go back, you can change something. Otherwise, you just click start. Now here it is. The Amazon Rekognition rat liver 85 is running. The progress so far, it's still queuing things up. Again, it's a cloud-based service, so we've got to establish that connection. We'll start streaming data up into the cloud. You can click on the name of the workflow itself and see its progress. So you'll see that it is running. You get a big progress bar here showing you files remaining. We're just starting. You can click for details here. We've already tagged 74 images that we'll be sending up. So far, we haven't tagged 3,356. So it's a very fast process. We're sending files up into the cloud. Rekognition is telling us what it found. We're already coming back and tagging images. Now, as this is running, you can see statistics on the run itself. When did it start? When did it update? When is it finished? And since this will be running on a continuous basis, we'll let you see multiple iterations in the user interface of the past 5 runs, and then you can download a report of all the runs. Since it's already running and tagging, I can show you how you would find the results. So the workflow is continuing. I can monitor it right from the main page. We're showing some progress here, but I can go into deep analytics now, and I can start a new query and say, I want to search for those rat liver tags. So already there's some files that have been tagged rat liver. The tag exists, there's some values. So it's finding these potential tumors in those images, and I can select which ones I'm interested in. I could, of course, select them all. So now we'll be searching the global file index for files, images, that have been tagged with those tumors, in this case, the C3H and the C57B. And I find a lot of files. Okay, this is a demo, so the numbers are all made up. I don't actually have petabytes of data behind me to play with. So the emulator just throws back some numbers, but essentially I'm filtering through the data set to find those files that have been tagged appropriately. The beauty of Komprise is not only do we help you find these results now, you can actually mobilize them. You can use this result, save the query, give it a name, rat liver 85. Once I've saved that query, I can use it in a data management plan. I can tier the data if I want to archive it for later use. I can copy it somewhere if there's another lab and another site that needs to look at it. If you are looking for PII and you found some, you may need to confine it or delete it. You can do that too with Komprise. So we let you act on the data as well as finding it. And that's one of the key values that Komprise gives you, that other tools can help you find things, can help you use AI, but none of them put together the combination of the search, the curating, the enrichment of the metadata in our index, and then acting on the data that have been found.
Paul, that was great. I got a lot of questions flooding in here. So maybe just stay in the demo mode because there might be some things to show as we get questions. The first one is, can you apply any label that the AI provides automatically as tags?
Yes, and in fact, when I configured the workflow, in fact, I'll just show you in the edit mode, I set it up so that all the tags that we'll use will have this same key, and the values are automatically generated. So whatever recognition comes back with, we'll automatically use that as the value of the tags. Now, in a future version, we're going to give you even more fine-grained control. That's sort of the easy button. Just use whatever recognition comes back with. We'll let you tailor that in another version. We'll have the defaults, what recognition will come back with, but you can say, actually, I'm going to twist this a little bit because I know there's a little more data. I want to add a little more information in my key value pair. And you can do that in an upcoming version.
Okay. Another couple of questions are coming from storage teams who clearly know file and object data well. So this question is, do you change the metadata of the file when you create an index?
So it's a very good question, and it shows a good understanding of how other tools may work. Komprise is an unstructured data management system. We scan all your data so that we can analyze it and then help you mobilize it. As I mentioned earlier, when we scan your data, we copy the metadata into our global file index. So now when we tag those files with our Komprise tags, we don't actually touch your source data. We never modify your source data. Obviously, for chain of custody, for compliance, governance reasons, it's not advisable for an outside tool to make changes to your data. We apply our tags to our global file index. So we have a copy of your metadata. We say that file has this metadata, and now it has this Komprise metadata of tags. So the beauty is it doesn't affect any of your source data, and it allows other users in your organization to share that use of our Komprise tags using our global file index.
Let me go to this slide for the next question, because it kind of walks through the flow of data. It might be helpful for folks to see. Let me see if I can move to the next slide. There we go. So the next question actually is related on access time. Does the access time of the file change when you feed it to AI? And what this slide summarizes is really the three things that we talked about. Is one, the ability to enrich any AI service. Two, the ability to then enrich any data with AI. And then three, as you saw in the demo, to create workflows, with any data lakes, data engines, and in this case, we've been feeding AI service. So can you talk about the access time, if that's impacted, Paul?
Absolutely. Of course, Komprise is always reading your files to provide you that aggregate analysis. We're reading the metadata files. If you're having us operate on the data, mobilize it, then of course we're changing the files as we copy them from place to place. but we always touch up our access times back to what they were before we touched it. So we know that we are affecting your data systems by being there and looking. And so we clean up after ourselves. If we're just reading data for analysis, we touch up access times to what they were before. If we're migrating data, when we've copied, we preserve the original access time on the destination. So it's in our DNA. We know unstructured data management, and we know how to make sure that, again, we don't change your source data. Whatever access times were there before we looked at it, they will still be the same after we've looked at it.
Okay. There's a question. There's so many terms that are new and being thrown around. This one is funny that the person made it clear. I'm not an LLM expert, by the way, but the question is, does this new offering feed an LLM vector database?
It can, in fact, and that's perhaps, Krishna, you want to take that. This speaks to the governance assistance that we can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can absolutely feed an LLM vector database. And in fact, Copilot is an example of a LLM that uses a vector database behind it. And we can take your corporate data and feed it so that it just augments the prompt, so that your corporate data doesn't go to the base LLM. It's just used for context to answer your question. So it's more specific in its answers.
Great. So let's come back to some. There's more questions flooding in, but let's go into the cost scenario. We kind of talked through how this works and what it could look like, but let's look at some scenarios and some use cases. So Krishna, do you want to walk us through kind of the cost before and after example, and then we'll kind of walk into some use cases?
Yeah, I'll give a simple example because I think, we saw from the polling answers, a lot of people are still figuring out AI, just starting to experiment with it. So you probably haven't thought about the cost too much, but, let's take a simple example. Let's say you have 3 million files, 1 million of those files are images, and you're trying to use, like Paul said in this example, you're trying to use an AWS service to detect, something in those images. And the service looks pretty inexpensive. It's just 1/10 of a penny per image, which is really, if you think about that, they're giving you an AI model trained for 1/10 of a penny. That's really, really good. But look how the costs start adding up. Let's say the first time you run the model on your images, it's it costs you $3,000 to run it if you run it on your entire data set. With Komprise, again, because we find just 1 million images and we feed that, it's only $1,000. So you do save 2/3 of your costs, but the numbers are not that big. But now, let's say somebody wants to identify another thing in the images. They run it again. Now, in the first case, because there's no memory of what the AI gave you, you got to run the whole thing again. So it becomes $6,000. Whereas with Komprise, as Paul told you, we retain all the information as tags in the global file index, so we don't have to run it again. So your costs remain at 1,000. So you can see that if just 10 users tried running this AI service, lo and behold, before you know it, your costs were $30,000 if you didn't use a systematic approach like Komprise. Darren, something weird is happening to the slides. They're just moving too fast. But anyway, instead, in this situation, you're saving, $29,000. So the savings really start adding up, as you have more data.
So let's talk about some of these use cases and specifics. And we have a really interesting image recognition use case that we'll talk about here. But also there's some others that we've seen some interest and demand for customers that we're working on. So do you want to kind of give us an overview of these, Krishna?
Yeah, we've been talking to a lot of our customers to find out, what they're interested in and how we can help them. Definitely, a lot of customers in healthcare in particular, as well as research, have a lot of imaging data. So image recognition is a very common use case. We'll in fact give you an example of a customer that's already using the solution and the value they've seen. But the other thing that often comes up is storage teams don't know if somebody is storing sensitive data where they shouldn't be. So can we find sensitive data and can we tag that? So that's another use case. The third one is just what, one of the questions was about, can we feed an LLM, like a chatbot that uses vector databases? Can we feed it more targeted data? And so we can do that with things like Copilot. So those are the 3 use cases that we're starting with. But again, our whole philosophy with Komprise, I think many of you may know, is we are an open solution and we don't lock you in. So the same is true with AI. We're not telling you that you can only use some AI solutions and not others. This is a workflow manager that is designed so that over time you can use it on any AI service. It's just that we're starting to package a few of those services in the UI, so the work is even simpler. You don't even have to try to connect it to anything. But over time, this is an ecosystem. You can use it on anything.
And it's been interesting talking to customers. As we saw in the poll, so many are all still learning about AI and trying to come up with relevant and interesting and really impactful use cases. So each time we get on calls, we hear of new ideas, or we brainstorm and say, hey, what about this? Could we do that? So we do want to have those calls and find out from you, what are you thinking about? What could some use cases be? And that's really how this situation came about at Duquesne. Do you want to kind of talk through what they were trying to do and the results?
Yeah, one of our customers is a university called Duquesne University in Pennsylvania. And, interestingly, their IT team was using deep analytics to help their different users inside the university. And one of the teams that was starting to use deep analytics was their library team. Commonly Komprise, we don't talk to library archivists, but this has been really interesting because their library archive team came back and said, it's great that we can search across all our digital collections using Komprise, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if you could just open the images and tell us what's inside the image? Because otherwise, every time somebody says, find me images of our football athlete, or find me images when JFK visited our campus, or whatever, an archivist has to go and spend months trying to open each image and try to find the matches and copy it somewhere. And so that's what we did. We created the smart data workflow using recognition. We found that across their 3 million files, there were 10,000 images through a DA query that were of interest. We sent those 10,000 images to recognition. From the time they set it up to running recognition to all of it, it just took 1 hour and 53 minutes. We tagged 9 images, and they were able to verify if the 9 images were truly of JFK, because sometimes AI can also give you false positives. And this whole process only took 1 hour and 53 minutes. If they had manually done this, every image would have taken about 2 minutes to inspect. So 10,000 images is 20,000 minutes. That's a couple of months of someone's time. So a couple of months versus, a couple of hours to minutes. I mean, that's the benefit of using an automatic, systematic process.
And what's been interesting here is the collaboration that's developed between the departmental teams and the storage teams, as well as now they're building custom models to identify specific buildings. So they've really become much savvier in their own AI journey and learning about building custom models. It's been interesting to watch this evolution. And great customer and great story. So they're actually going to be speaking at the AWS Summit on a panel, an AI panel for higher education later this month in DC. So if you're on the East Coast, check them out I think it's on the 26th of June. So there are a few more questions that have come in. I do want to just make a few key points to folks who are, existing customers or organizations looking to become customers. We are in an early access program with this area of the product line. So we are implementing this with a specific set of accounts on a specific set of use cases. So if you are interested, please do let us know. You can read more about on the blog and some of the links here on the panels. And it is available in the 5.7x release. So a lot of our customers are right there with us on latest upgrades. So there's new and really interesting functionality there, and we'd love to connect with you and discuss some ideas you may have for possible use cases. So,
and Darren, I mean, we didn't say this in the presentation, but since a lot of people brought up data governance, of course, when Komprise moves this data to any AI service, we're giving you full data governance, because not only did we show you what data is going to move, we're also auditing what moved, when, who sent it, what happened. All of that is audited for you, so you have that governance trail that you need.
Yep. So let's jump into a couple more questions, and if you want to ask questions, you can use the panel on the right. One is, do we need to have a cloud bucket in order to use this?
You don't, absolutely. It depends really on the AI service. Some of those services require, from their perspective, that you put your data in a bucket, in a container somewhere for the service to access it. And if that's the case, we can work with that. But in other cases, the system allows you to just stream data up to the service. And that is a much more friendly system. It's easier to integrate with. And of course, your data never actually leaves your premises, doesn't get stored anywhere in the cloud. It just streams up and then is deleted right after that.
Okay, great. Can this be used with on-prem AI services?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in the demo, I showed you I teased a little PII detection system. That's actually an on-prem service that Komprise has incorporated and would live on premises wherever it's deployed. Of course, we can integrate, as Krishna mentioned, with practically any system. It doesn't even have to be AI. The beauty of the Smart Data Workflow Manager is that it's truly generic. It's a framework that allows you to find some data, send it to a system, whatever that system is, get results back, fine-tune, enhance that data, send it through again, send it to other systems. So that other service can be in the cloud. It can be something that you have bought and licensed on-prem. It can be something you've developed, your own proprietary algorithms to work on your data. We can connect to anything, anywhere.
Okay. Question about partnerships. Which partners are you working with to develop this smart data workflow? Maybe a question for Krishna.
Yeah, definitely we're working with our cloud partners, because they both Amazon and Azure have a lot of investments in AI and have a lot of data services that are generally available for customers. So we're working with them. As Paul mentioned, for data that you never want to leave your corporate environment, we are providing some built-in AI services, especially around PII detection. But yeah, we're working with all our different partners. And again, the beauty of this approach is you don't need us to work with any specific partner for you to use this on any AI service you want. We're not restricting you to any particular services. You can use it on any AI service.
Makes sense. I think there's also an opportunity for our partners to work with us on industry solutions. Many of our channel partners, resellers, VARs, you have industry expertise. We would love to talk about ideas to tailor this to specific verticals around specific types of data, use cases. So I think there's just tons of potential for all of our partners to be part of this. And that kind of leads to the next question: is this extensible? How can you envision connecting to any AI service?
It's just a matter of their APIs. Yeah, again, it can be wide open. It just depends on if their APIs are available. We can talk to them. If it's an on-prem service, there must be some way to access it. Generally, those systems need to have a way to get data in and provide results out. So we just connect.
Okay, great. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our scheduled time. Thanks everyone for all of your great questions. I want to give you each a final word. This isn't final because this is in early days in this area. But so Paul, maybe speak to this area, the product line, how someone can get involved, and then maybe Krishna, where you see this going.
Yeah, exactly, Darren. We're calling it early access, but it is fully baked. It's ready to use, as you saw in the demo. Let us know if you'd like to get involved. You can contact Komprise in any of our standard channels, information at info@komprise.com, sales. Contact us, let us know. We'd love to get you involved.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of developments in AI and it can be very overwhelming, but really the simplest way to think about this is do you have data that you don't know much about and would like to get better information about it based on the contents of the data? And if you do, AI could be a great way to help you classify the data, and that's a great start. And again, starting with images and text is kind of an easy place to start. So if you have documents or if you have images, guess what? You can use AI and you can use it without even knowing anything about AI with us. So just reach out and we'll help you.
And we talked at the start of the webinar about really this intersection of unstructured data and AI. I think just a quick funny story. Krishna, you talked to an industry analyst recently, and these folks are getting briefed by all kinds of different vendors every day. Talking about some new solution or new AI tool. Do you want to share the feedback that you received when you kind of told them all about Smart Data Workflow Manager?
Yeah, so first, when we started and we said, hey, this is around AI, I could kind of feel that this person was like, eye roll. I mean, they were trying to be polite, but it's like everybody's saying AI, AI. And at the end, he just opened up and he's like, thank God you didn't show me another chatbot, because so much of, people's announcements around AI is we wrote a chatbot that would talk to you, And so he thought that this was, he loved the vision of the platform and said, this is something that actually makes sense.
Great. Oh, we got one more question here because we do have technically 2 minutes. Can this service scan on-prem and cloud data sources to map and classify data and identify personal private information, PII? It's kind of the setup to the whole story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Komprise helps our customers manage unstructured data wherever it is, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Once we have access to that data, we can analyze it, and then we can send it through these smart data workflows, again, with a personally identifiable information. PII is easier to say. Yeah, we're working on a built-in scanner to help you find that as well.
Yeah, and you just like we showed this other workflow, you just say PII scanner, and then you can pick the types of PII you're interested in, and it'll label everything. Or you can just say label everything you find, and it'll do that. So if you're interested in a demo of that, reach out to us, and we can demo it to you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for the great demonstration and discussion, and we look forward to working with you all on what's next in the world of AI and workflows. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.